Hey guys, welcome back to Reserved Investments on YouTube. Are you ready to have your mind blown? Because today I'm going to introduce to you a concept known as the Lindy Effect that is going to help explain why I choose to invest in coins and currency over the long term in the antiques and collectibles trade. I even prefer to invest in coins and currency over a lot of pop culture collectibles. Now, that doesn't mean that I do not own any pop culture collectibles in my own investment grade portfolio. I do, mainly vintage comic books and even some vintage toys, but I do prefer for the long term to hold coins, currency, certain historical documents, and even in certain instances, first edition collectible books, because these particular items, these collecting categories, are on the mature and sophisticated side of the equation when we talk about investing in antiques and collectibles. Now, there is a concept that I was introduced to by my mentors at the age of 17, and it is known as the Lindy Effect. Before I define the Lindy Effect for all of you that are watching, I want you to partake in a brief mental exercise with me. I can assure you right now, with accuracy, that over 50% of you are going to fail this exercise. So what I'm going to do for you, I'm going to name two prominent musical acts throughout history that you both are familiar with. What I want you to do is I want you, in your mind, to think about the musical act that will still be relevant or more relevant in the year 2123. So we're going 100 years into the future, and I'm asking you to decide between these two musical acts that I'm going to name in a minute here, which one is more relevant in that time frame. Now, the two choices that you have to choose from are, number one, we're going to start with Ludwig van Beethoven. For the uninitiated, Ludwig van Beethoven was born in Germany in 1770, and he died in Austria in 1827. Feel free to look that up, because honestly, I think that's correct. Ludwig van Beethoven was a master composer. He's probably one of the most famous classical musicians ever. And spoiler alert, he wasn't very creative when it came to naming the pieces of music that he put out. He pretty much just assigned a number to them. For instance, I'm sure that you've all heard of either Symphony Number 5, Symphony Number 7, or Symphony Number 9. They all have very bland names. But if you like classical music, they meant something to you and still mean something to you to this very day. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, the second choice you have to choose from is a little group that came around in like 1987, and they came out of Washington State, and they were known as Nirvana. And Nirvana is pretty much credited with helping create the grunge movement that took over the 1990s. And if you don't know the history of Nirvana, they were the little group that has always been and always will until the end. And unfortunately, they did end. The lead singer of the group was Kurt Cobain, and he struggled with a lot of addiction issues. He had depression, anxiety, and he was also married to Courtney Love. So I don't know if that attributed to his death. All kidding aside, though, it is a traumatic event. Kurt Cobain did take his own life, sadly, sometime in, I want to say, 1995. So as a result, Nirvana has only been around since 1987, all the way up then to around 1994, 1995. But they did release several prominent albums, especially Nevermind, which was their breakout album that really put them on the map. And as a result, they continue to still sell millions and millions of copies of their records, usually in digital form, year after year, and younger generations are still enjoying and just discovering Nirvana's music for the very first time. So, between Beethoven and Nirvana, in the year 2123, which musical act do you think will be more relevant? I'm going to count to 5, and then I'm going to give you the answer, and be prepared to have your mind blown. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those of you that guessed Nirvana, you are 100% incorrect. The correct answer is Beethoven. Now, how can I sit here and tell you that 100 years into the future, Beethoven is going to be more relevant than nirvana. How do I have that information? I'm not psychic. I don't own a DeLorean time machine, at least last time that I checked. That wasn't in Lego form. So how do I have this information? Well, it comes down to something known as the Lindy Effect. Let me define what the Lindy Effect is. The Lindy Effect is simply the idea that the older something is, the longer it's likely to be around in the future. Now, I want to make this very clear. This applies to things that are already cultural relevant and have stood the test of time. So we can apply this to coins, currency, historical documents, certain first edition books. Do not try to apply this concept to vintage Lionel toy trains or vintage Schwinn bicycles. It's not going to work for you. It's not designed for that. It's designed for things that have long-term historical meaning and or cultural relevance. And if you had to choose between historical meaning and cultural relevance, I would always tell you, what's my role? Go with history. History is the best predictor. History is the best teacher. Now let me give you an example of the Lindy Effect in action. And this may answer the question as to why Shawn chooses to own a first edition copy of The Great Gatsby. Because we're going to use books in this example, not comic books, books. If a book has been in print for 40 years, I can expect it to be in print for another 40 years. But, and that is the main difference, if it survives another decade, then it will be expected to be in print another 50 years. This, simply as a rule, tells you why things that have been around for a long time are not aging like persons, but they are aging in reverse. Every year that passes without extinction doubles the additional life expectancy. This is an indicator of robustness. The robustness of an item is proportional to its life. Do you guys understand where I'm going with this? Now, you have to use caution here because I already know the comic book collectors that watch this channel, they're licking their lips right now, and they're looking at their watch going, oh my gosh, well, look at Action Comics 1. Look at Detective Comics 27. Those particular comic books came out in the late 1930s. If they keep going strong, pretty soon they're going to be more than 100 years of age. That means potentially Batman and Superman, they're going to have significant relevance. So therefore, if I'm investing in comic books, I'm okay. Well, here's the problem. You're not investing in an Action Comics 1. You're most likely not investing in a Detective Comics 27 either. You might be buying a Batman 232 or a Batman 227, but that's not on par with a Detective Comics 21. So that's what you need to understand. That's the difference, guys. And that's why when the Timmys, Kimmys, and Poindexters come into my comment section saying, look at this guy, reserved investments. He's in his 40s. He invests in coins, currency, historical documents, and the like. He should be putting his money in Pokemon or Magic the Gathering or video games for the long term. What they are lacking is an understanding of the Lindy Effect. But now that you watch this video, you understand the Lindy Effect. You can look it up. You can Google it. You can read all you want about it. And guess what, guys? That's why investing in antiques and markets that are mature and sophisticated in the overall antiques and collectibles trade is one way to diversify assets over the long term. That generally works if you buy right, if you do your research, and if you understand the risks. This is especially true if you're already financially established. That's why most of those rich guys that you see who are old, it's not that they grew up with coins and currency. It's not that they grew up with traditional antiques and historical documents. The reason why they're investing in it long term is because they're looking at this from a financial investment standpoint and they understand the Lindy Effect. So let me know your feedback and comments in the comment section below. I'd be happy to hear them. Thanks for watching and have a great night.